NFL Week 3 had some key takeaways, some key injuries, and some key developments for players. So, without further ado, this is the Points Per Podcast, and let's get into it. All right, so the first game we're going to get into, no order in particular, we're looking at the Packers-Browns game, which this one right here was actually a showcase of two defensive giants, honestly. So, it's going to be hard to really find key takeaways on offense, but we did get some major developments this game. When looking at the Packers side of the ball, obviously the offense kind of struggled a little bit because this Cleveland Browns defense really did step it up. Grant Delpit made some key plays. And when looking at production from the receiver room, obviously Tucker Kraft was a little bit hampered this game, and his targets kind of show that. He kind of leveled out with everyone else. Josh Jacobs actually the leading target for this game. So on the passing side of things, really, really hard to find a takeaway for this one. But as for Josh Jacobs, obviously super involved with this offense no matter what's going on. And obviously they were in the lead for most of this game too. So they didn't really have to throw the ball that much up until the end of it when obviously things started to get out of hand and Cleveland started to surge back. Now, looking at the Cleveland side of the ball, the only person on the receiving side of things that seemed to really get a bump up this game was David Njoku with 7 targets. Harold Fannin kind of came back to earth, but was still super involved in terms of the receiving core out there. And when it comes to running the ball, Quinshon Judkins in this fourth quarter actually stepped up huge. This past game, Quinshon Judkins had 34 rushing yards over expected, which was third amongst rookies. And I think right now his 56 rushing yards over expected are the best amongst rookies. So in terms of being able to make things happen out there and stay efficient, he's doing really well so far. So Quinshon Judkins may be a guy going on for the rest of the season. But when it comes to the rest of this game, not really a whole lot to talk about. So going to the next one. When taking a look at Indianapolis and the Titans, it's starting to seem like Indianapolis may actually be a thing, and Daniel Jones is actually going to kind of be a thing here. Now, obviously, things cooled off a little bit for Daniel Jones, but still a very solid day for him and still not turning over the ball. So they have been extremely effective with getting Daniel Jones employed in this offense. But the biggest story for this one is Jonathan Taylor. 17 carries for 102 yards and 3 touchdowns. Seems that the king is back in town, and Jonathan Taylor is benefiting from this offense rolling the way that it is. And also looking at the receiving side of things, it's pretty evenly spread amongst the receivers. Obviously, Michael Pittman found the most success amongst the receivers, but when it comes to like target share amongst like the major guys we look at out there, it's not too far apart still. I think this is still a situation where we don't know if there is going to be an alpha receiver out here, but Tyler Warren is a guy that you start every single week because he is in this mix, and as a tight end, he is way too valuable. He's even with this week, he wasn't amazing. He's still putting up numbers for your team. And then looking at Tennessee, Cam Ward, he's performing well. I just don't know if the team is. There's been a lot of drops. Obviously, Calvin Ridley, you can see him down there, 1 for 27 with 7 targets. So 6 of them not able to meet the mark. I'm not exactly sure how many of those were catchable. I'm sure we'll get into that later this week when we can actually, take a look at stuff like that. But first reactions right now, not great for this passing offense. Chigakonkwo able to step up at the tight end position, so that may be huge for anybody who's trying to find, tight end streamers, anything like that, or is looking for a starting tight end. You're one of those Mark Andrews teams, which today is Monday. Maybe he steps up tonight and, kind of breaks that trend, but if you're looking for tight ends, Chig may be a guy that you look to. And then Alec Ayomanor, he has just been performing week in and week out. Honestly, it's starting to look like it's not a fluke, and I think he has scored every week so far this season. Obviously, touchdowns aren't a sticky stat, but in terms of being someone that this offense looks to target, he has been a steady, consistent guy at the front of this room. And then looking at the running backs, Tony Pollard is still not getting it done. 2.8 yards per carry. Obviously, he found pay dirt, so that kind of saved the day for him. But I think that if you're looking for a running back, Tyjae Spears may be somebody you want to at least try to kick the tires on. He may be available on waivers. He may be someone you got to trade for, but I'm sure the price isn't super high on him considering he's still on IR for at least another week. You may be able to capitalize on that, but this offense has to do something different in terms of running the ball because right now Tony Pollard is not getting it done. And also, just for further rookie developments, Gunnar Helm getting involved with this offense as well. 3 targets, caught all 3 of them. So he may get some work a little bit more as well. I think this team may end up retooling at some point, just based on how things are going. Next up, we got Bengals Vikings. And it turns out when you lose an MVP candidate at quarterback, it does hurt your receivers quite a bit. Now, I will say I was a victim of this as well. Last week, I saw the production that the wide receiver still had, and I figured that things would still be okay, but that was without also looking into the fact that, T. Higgins benefited from a broken play on that touchdown and, a lot of other factors kind of fell in their favor. But looking at this week, yeah, we got the full brunt of what this offense looks like with Jake Browning heading the charge, and it is not pretty. Obviously, the offensive line is still abysmal. Part of the reason why this team has been able to, succeed in lieu of that is because of Joe Burrow and how fast he's able to get the ball out of there and kind of mitigate how bad that line is. So without him there, it just kind of exposes how bad they really are. And that also showed in the run game, as you can see with Mr. Chase Brown, 10 carries for 3 yards. That's not what you want to see out of your starters. And everyone else they kind of shuffled in there, Samaje Perine, Taj Brooks. None of them looked particularly great. I know it says right here, Samaje Perine 4 for 21, but I'm not. Samaje Perine is not a guy. That's not something that makes me excited. Now, Jamar Chase still able to find somewhat of his because he is still an elite receiver. He still had 5 catches, 50 yards, but at the end of the day, you wanna get more out of your guys that you drafted as high as this, and it's looking scary for the Bengals because Joe Burrow may be out for the rest of the fantasy season. So this is gonna be a rough ride for those, and then T. Higgins, obviously 1 for 15 off 3 targets or 2 targets. Yeah, insanity. Now, on the Vikings side of the ball with Kevin O'Connell, he's just it seems like he might just be really good at reviving old quarterbacks. I don't know, he might not be great at developing new ones, but when Carson Wentz back here at the helm, obviously the defense from Minnesota also just completely balled out. Isaiah Rodgers had a day, but Carson Wentz back there actually looked extremely competent when it comes to him turning the ball over and forcing those plays, the stuff that you usually see out of Carson Wentz was pretty mitigated for the most part. Obviously, there were some missed throws, but all in all together, he played a pretty clean game. Justin Jefferson able to get 7 targets, 5 catches for 75, so able to push the ball down the field and get it to his guys. And the most important news out of this is maybe TJ Hawkinson is a guy with JJ McCarthy out because he got 6 targets, caught 5 of them for 49 and a touchdown. He may be somebody that this team is looking to, while JJ McCarthy is out and while they're able to distribute the ball a little bit more evenly than they were able to before because JJ really wasn't getting it done. And then obviously Jordan Mason, one of the bigger stories of this, they told us ahead of time he was going to be a bell cow for this team, and he was pretty much nothing but. Out of the 31 carries the team had, he had 16 of them for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, he's a guy that you're starting as long as Aaron Jones is out because he is going to be a focal point of this offense. I actually just thought about that. 16 carries and 31 total team carries. I guess 29 total team carries. Not the best share. Like, he is splitting it, but he's doing well with what he's got, so I can't really be mad about it. Next up, we got Steelers, Patriots, which this is kind of a weirder, not really fun game to talk about. But when it comes to the Steelers themselves, Jalen Warren has been the guy in the backfield, but Kenneth Gainwell's still getting a fair amount of work back there as well. Caleb Johnson was a 0 for this game. So we talked about it last week. I said he was going to get mega benched. He did. So when it comes to this, he just wasn't really out there too much. But Aaron Rodgers still looking decent out there, able to distribute the ball and pass. He passed Brett Favre an all-time touchdown, so congratulations to him. I think he's 4th on the list now. But when it comes to this passing game, it is a little confusing. You would think DK Metcalf would be far and away, the most targeted guy in this offense, but it's not. It's actually Jalen Warren. And then second is Calvin Austin. So DK Metcalf was able to score, and that kinda saved the day for him, but other than that, he's not really like a super targeted guy in this offense. No one really is, except for, Jalen Warren. So, it's tough to really decipher what to do with this passing offense. And then looking at the other side of the ball with the Patriots, they left so many opportunities on the table this game. And I feel like a lot of that, if they had just trusted Trevion Henderson to really, like, take the lion's share of this stuff. I know he wasn't efficient with what he was doing, but I still feel like he's looked like the best running back there. And also, he hasn't fumbled the ball, which Ramondre Stevenson did twice yesterday. Antonio Gibson did once. Drake May turned over the ball. I think at this point, they gotta start looking to their guys. But one thing that was very encouraging, if you're looking for a tight end and he hasn't been picked up, because I think he's on waivers in a lot of different leagues right now, Hunter Henry popped off. Now he has shown signs of success throughout this year, but 11 targets, catching 8 of them for 90 and 2 touchdowns. That just shows that he is, a focal point of this passing offense right now that is kind of in flux. In terms of the other pass catchers, I have no idea who it is you would want. We thought Kayshon Boutte was gonna be a guy, but he's definitely cooled off. And Stephon Diggs hasn't quite caught his feet here. So it's outside of, I guess, the running back room and Hunter Henry, it's tough to really know who's gonna get targeted from a week to week. This game right here, man, this one was it had to be a heartbreaker for Rams fans because they had this game in the bag and kinda gave it up at the end, but the Eagles definitely deserved this one. They surged at the end and kinda pulled it together. I just know Patullo is his last name, but whoever the offensive coordinator for the Eagles is so uninspiring, and it felt like towards the end of the game, they just kinda pushed him to the side and said, "Hey, we gotta do our thing. We gotta get the ball to our killers," because that's exactly what they did towards the end of the game. They actually passed the ball. 32 attempts this week for Jalen Hurts, which is amazing to see. AJ Brown, 10 targets, caught 6 of those for 109 in the tug, and Devonta Smith, 8 of those for 8 of those for 60 in a tug. And even Dallas Goedert able to find the end zone as well. So this passing offense, if they need to throw the ball, obviously they're very capable of doing so. The problem I've had with this team is they haven't had to throw the ball because honestly, up until this game, it's been pretty easy for them. They've just kind of been able to run the ball, waste clock, have the slowest pace of play, and just coast. Which I don't blame them if you're winning games like that. But if you're behind and you gotta make something happen, they made it happen. They were able to flip the switch. So it's good to see they were able to do that. I am wondering how many situations this season they're really going to have to do this because even last year with this Rams team, it was a good matchup for the Eagles. So I kind of knew this was going to be a tough game going, ahead of time. But if everybody, if they don't have a whole lot of tough games like this, I just don't know how much they're really going to throw the ball. Like they had to this week, but they didn't do it till the second half. So, it's tough. Looking at the Rams side of the ball, Kyron Williams is still the guy in this backfield. Blake Corum got some touches, but most of those were between the 20s, so nothing really super valuable there. I know we were a little bit afraid about Blake Corum with the red zone touches he was getting last week, but none of that really this week. Kyron Williams was the guy. But the guy I really want to talk about here is Puka Nacua with 15 targets. At this point, with him being one of the most targeted receivers in the league, he's getting pushed up there into like top 5, top 3 conversations just off of the fact that he is targeted this much and he does get this much burn and turning it into 11 catches for 112 yards. Those aren't empty targets. So week in and week out, Puka Nacua has shown and proven that he is one of the best and one of the toughest wide receivers out there in the league. And I think we do just have to start trusting that at a certain point. And Devontae Adams able to get it done too. I believe one of these was a, like, 44-yard touchdown. One was pretty big, but, 3 catches, 56 yards and touchdown, so still able to get it done, and that's off of 8 targets as well. So, the target funnel is still very much there between these 2 wide receivers. Everybody else, nothing really to talk about there. Now, taking a look at the Jets and the Buccaneers, this one was actually pretty interesting at the end of the game. Obviously, the 4th quarter was insane. The Jets completely surged back and almost took this one if it weren't for, Baker Mayfield getting I think he had like a minute 49 left. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, Baker's probably going to drive down the field. But with that being said, Tyrod Taylor able to get it done, in lieu of Justin Fields being gone for the week. Had the second most carries on the team, but the most rushing yards on the team for Tyrod Taylor and able to get the ball to Garrett Wilson. 10 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown. So that was super encouraging to see off 13 targets. So it's good to see that at least in the game plan, they are supposed to be getting the ball to Garrett Wilson a lot. We just got to hope that Justin Fields, when he comes back, is able to do it. Or if they leave Tyrod Taylor in, we probably don't even have to worry about it and it will happen. So it's at least encouraging. Mason Taylor and Brees Hall also helping to lead the team in targets as well. So super encouraging to see the rookie getting involved and just see Brees Hall still involved, but it's tough because this offense hasn't been great and Brees Hall hasn't been able to do a whole lot with what he's gotten, but the volume is there. And then on Tampa Bay side of things, Bucky Irving got a lot of volume, wasn't super efficient with it, but he was the go-to guy when it came to running the ball. He also led the running backs in targets as well with 4 of them, caught all 4. So Bucky Irving still super involved in this offense. But the biggest news here is that Mike Evans went down with a hamstring injury. And if you all recall from last year, it was also a hamstring injury that Mike Evans went down with that kept him out for a handful of games. So it's looking like Emeka Egbuka may be his show. I think this is also a reason why the team probably didn't put Chris Godwin on IR just so they wouldn't have to, wait another week and they could activate him if he was ready because we may see some Chris Godwin next week. But if we don't, It will be the Emeka Egbuka show. It kinda has been the Emeka Egbuka show. As, Eric has said, Emeka Egbuka is inevitable, and I've been one of the biggest ones pounding the drum for him. He has been great, honestly, to start out this season. I don't really have any complaints about him. He didn't score this week for the first week of the season, and that's completely to be expected. But to be honest with you, 6 catches for 85 yards off of 8 targets is nothing to shake a stick at, and he should be hyper targeted going forward, especially if Chris Godwin isn't able to come back next week. All right, so we're here. We're talking about the home team. We got the Washington Commanders. So Marcus Mariota stood in for Jaden Daniels and honestly looked pretty good outside of that run that he fumbled on. That was a little crazy. But in terms of running this offense, it looks like it was kind of built for the two of them to be able to, keep things running smoothly. And obviously Marcus Mariota has been sort of a mentor for Jaden Daniels. So he is very familiar with this offense. Now, when it comes to the skill players and how everything fell apart or fell through, so when looking at this team, the most confusing part kind of is the running back room. It's really a committee, about as committee as I've ever seen. I think Chris Rodriguez started out the game. Jerry McNichols led the game in rushing. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt was also super involved. He had like 8 carries as well. Chris Rodriguez had 11. Jerry McNichols had 4, but broke off a huge touchdown run. I think Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt scored in the red zone. So I don't know exactly what this breakdown is gonna be for this running back room. I don't think anyone is. Are they all worth a pickup? Yes, because this is a team that is capable, like you see, they put up 40 points, and out of the 3 running backs, 2 of them scored, and the other one was still had 11 carries. So, it's tough to say who is going to be the guy on a week to week. Like, you wanna have one of these guys on your bench, but it's gonna be tough to know who to start. Now, one of the bigger stories from here, Terry McLaurin left the game with a quad injury, and he was questionable to return. It's still up in the air what's going on with that, so it's something we're gonna have to keep an eye on, but also is probably a result of him not being with the team through training camp, just not being up to, the same conditioning, stuff like that. It really does matter. It really does take its toll. But also when it comes to this team, they just didn't really have to throw the ball a lot, as you can see from the box score. They were pretty in control of it for the most part. Luke McCaffrey able to score his first touchdown. So when we're looking at the other receivers, I expect more Luke McCaffrey. I don't expect more of Luke McCaffrey, but I expect more Luke McCaffrey in the mix. And with Jalen Lane, I kind of expect him to be more in the mix as well. I think that he kind of proved himself a little bit more with this team with showing how good he's been doing with special teams. He may have earned himself a little bit more opportunities with the offense now that there are injuries and things are starting to stack up a little bit, but stands to be seen. It's just something that I think that if you want to try to get ahead of it, Jalen Lane is somebody that people aren't paying a whole lot of attention to that may end up having a little bit of value. Looking at the Raiders side of the ball, Geno Smith is out there dealing, bro. We talked about it in previous weeks. He's still out there dealing. The issue here is he's not really dealing to the people we want him to. Trey Tucker absolutely balled. I don't think he's going to keep this up on a week to week basis, but I think that his performances so far this season have definitely at least made him an interesting waiver ad at this point. And when it comes to Ashton Genty in this backfield, again, we just have to give it more time. This offensive line has been really bad, and he's been hit in the backfield, I believe, on like 57% of his runs or something ridiculous. So Ashton Genty needs to obviously be protected a little bit better back there, but things will end up falling in place for him at some point. It's rough right now. It's rough. And then obviously other guys, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, you really want things to kind of swing better in their direction. But it just didn't fall this week. I think Brock Bowers is still kind of recovering from that injury. So I kind of expect a little bit more production out of him next week and maybe in future weeks, but I really wasn't expecting a whole lot out of him this week. This is going to be another decently quick one to talk about. On the Falcons side of the ball, Michael Penix not looking like a good thrower of the football as of late. And Kirk Cousins ended up coming in on this one as well. So I don't think Michael Penix is going to get benched at any point soon. Obviously, they're going to try to figure this out before they do anything drastic, but he's not looking great. Bijan had a great game, though, honestly. He was held to earth because he didn't score any touchdowns. So obviously, no one did on Atlanta, but he was still able to get like 112 yards total. So it's encouraging to see out of him. But right now, it's tough to be optimistic on any of the pass catchers over in Atlanta just because Michael Penix hasn't been great with the ball. And then on the Panthers side of things, they looked better. Like, this is probably one of the better games in the Canales Young era of the Carolina Panthers, but in terms of, like, the actual performances by the players, there was nothing anyone really did that was super impressive. Bryce Young was able to find a rushing touchdown. I actually did see him, scamper in there. Rico Dowdle found the end zone as well, but not great running the ball. Tedero McMillan was able to still make some key plays. He only caught 3 passes for 48 off the 8 targets, but honestly, it was a good-looking 3 catches. It's tough to say what he's gonna be because I don't know what Bryce Young is gonna be or how he is even looking at this point. So the Panthers are just a tough eval, man, be honest. Up next, we got the Texans and the Jaguars. Now, the Texans have been struggling, and they continued to struggle this week. Nico Collins able to find the end zone, 8 catches, 104 and a tug. So I know Nico Collins owners finally happy to finally, have him on the squad. But other than that, nothing really impressive from this team. CJ Stroud struggled, threw a key pick, I think at the end of the game as well to, clinch the loss. However, there are some interesting ads, at least for this team, in terms of like volume and who is getting targeted. Dalton Schultz may be an interesting ad for tight ends. He got targeted 6 times. And Christian Kirk in his first game back from injury targeted 8 times, only turned out into 3 catches for 25 yards. So people may not be looking at him a whole lot, but the underlying metrics say that he's somebody this offense has kind of been looking for to return. So, yeah. And then looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars side of the ball, bro, I've been saying this for years, and I'm really gonna put my stamp on it now. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is good at the NFL level. I think he was great, amazing at the college level even, enough so that we thought he was going to be amazing at this level. He's done nothing, absolutely nothing to show me that he is going to be elite in the NFL. I'm sorry. And that kinda continues because he's got these elite weapons, but they're struggling to get it to him in what should be a system that is beneficial towards, pass catchers. So, I don't know if it's Liam Cohen that is struggling, which I doubt it considering what we saw last year, but they're just not able to get it together over here. And Trevor Lawrence is kinda at the helm of that, throwing 50%. Now, Brenton Strange, if he hasn't been picked off of waivers, I think he's somebody that should be on your team. He's been very productive at the tight end position just about every week this season. He's been pretty good. That's going to continue going forward from what I've seen. Parker Washington was targeted 11 times this game. I joked at the beginning of this year that Parker Washington was going to be a part of this offense, and Eric kind of blew it off, which I'm not hurt by because I was joking. But this is looking like it's not a joke anymore, and it's starting to piss me off a little bit, especially as a Brian Thomas owner. But at the same time, looking at the tape, Brian Thomas is out there dropping some key passes as well. So there's a lot that has to go on. And when we're looking at even like Travis Hunter, he played more defense than offense last week. So I don't know what's happening with the top pass catchers over here. We just have to hope it gets figured out at some point. Oh, and for the rushers, Travis Etienne is still the guy over there, but Bayshaw Tootin is getting more touches back there as well. Also getting involved in the passing game, not a ton, but a little bit at least. All right, Broncos Chargers. Bo Nix was able to get a lot done this week, but not enough to actually get the win. Justin Herbert was still able to do that, and Justin Herbert able to do that in a game where he was getting his face blitzed off. Still able to get a lot done out there. Now, we're going to talk about the biggest stories from this game. I don't want to talk about every single person. Cortland Sutton, we told you guys be patient. He'll be fine. Obviously, he was. Had one of his biggest games, 6 receptions, 118 yards and a touchdown. He's here to stay in that offense. And J.K. Dobbins still getting the lion's share of carries and getting work in the passing game as well. So he's still got to start until proven otherwise. R.J. Harvey is getting ramped up as more of, I guess, a passing downs running back. But we'll see more as, I guess, the season unfolds and, things start to happen as things break down. But for the Chargers, big prayers up to Najee Harris, man. That terrible to see. Looks to be an Achilles injury, and if so, I think they said it was a non-contact Achilles injury as well after the game. So he's probably going to be done for this season. Um, so prayers to Najee Harris and him through, his recovery process because you hate to see something like that, especially on a, career make or break year like that for him. But when it comes to Omarion Hampton in this backfield, he's got all the opportunity now, and he's getting a lot of work out of the backfield as a pass catcher as well. 6 catches, I believe, off of 7 targets for almost 60 yards and 70 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So I think Omarion Hampton has league-winning potential going forward. And another exciting development from this game, Aronde Gadsden, the tight end, the rookie tight end, also getting a lot of burn. 7 targets, caught 5 of them for 46 yards. May go under the radar for a lot of people, but if you're looking for a tight end or you're struggling, that may be a name that you want to keep an eye on these next couple weeks. And Quentin Johnston still getting it done. I guess this was a good offseason for him. He was able to figure something out with Justin Herbert. 10 targets, caught 6 of them for 89 yards, and Keenan Allen, father time, 7 catches, 65 yards and the touchdown off 11 targets. Ladd McConkey out of this trio, the least targeted with 7, caught 4 of them for 41 yards, though. So it's tough because I wanna say that Ladd McConkey is the guy that defenses are targeting, and that's why the other guys are getting all those catches, but Pat Surtain played a lot on Quentin Johnston, so I don't know if that's the case. Saints Seahawks, we're not gonna do a whole lot of talking here either because this was just kind of a dominant game for the Seahawks. Sam Darnold still getting it done. Kenneth Walker able to find the end zone twice on an otherwise pretty inefficient day, but just kinda shows how well the offense was rolling that he was able to get those opportunities. And Jackson Smith and Jigba able to get it done after appearing on the injury report the day before the game for an illness. I don't know if they ever said it was. They said it was some sort of a bug, but obviously didn't matter. Came back the next day, 5 catches, 96 yards, and the touchdown. Absolutely putting in work off of 6 targets as well. The second most targeted player on this team, Torrey Horton, not Cooper Kupp, interestingly enough. But Torrey Horton able to turn those 4 targets into 3 catches for 32 and a touchdown. I believe he was able to find a touchdown in special teams as well, so big game from the rookie. Yeah, just took a look, returned a punt for a touchdown, so huge game for the rookie, and we're probably gonna see more opportunities for him going forward, so if he is someone on waivers, he's at least worth taking a look at and keeping an eye on. In Dynasty, he should just be on teams already. Looking at the Saints side of the ball, nothing really changed in terms of the target funnel, but Rashid Shaheed did get more looks as well as Brandon Cooks. But I think this was more of a negative game script. We got to throw the ball and get it out there. So it was just 41 attempts. Everybody's going to get some sort of looks. But it is good to see at least that that is what the breakdown is Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson, Rashid Shaheed, and then Alvin Kamara somewhere in there, which I would have liked to see him targeted more. Now, taking a look at the Cowboys-Bears game, we all thought this was gonna be more of a shootout than it was. Obviously, the Bears went out there, and Ben Johnson showed off all of the old, signs of being Ben Johnson that there are, the trick plays, the big chunk plays. Caleb Johnson looked the best he had or Caleb Johnson. Caleb Williams has looked the best that he has this whole season. I think he went this whole game without getting sacked as well for the first time in his career, so things are looking up, but this was against a very, very, very beat up Cowboys defense that we all knew going into the season was going to be bad. But one of the bigger stories from this game, Luther Burden led this team in receiving yards, 101 receiving yards off of 3 catches. One of those was off a big flea flicker trick play. It was like a 65-yard passing touchdown. But I think it is safe to say if DJ Moore were to get traded from this team and they were to employ, Luther Burden a little bit more, I think he will be a guy for this offense, like a really good piece of this offense. And then Roma Dunze obviously is still the alpha for this team. He operated as such with all 7 targets. I think one of those was even a drop touchdown, so opportunity for an even bigger day for Roma Dunze. So definitely some big things ahead. Javonte Williams still getting it done on the ground, 7.6 yards per carry. And in terms of the receiving, Jake Ferguson was the most targeted player on this team, but also CeeDee Lamb went out of the game with an injury. We're still getting news on what happened. It looked a little nasty. He tried to come back and play in the game, but wasn't able to after trying to run a route. I believe like an out route or something like that. He just kind of put a hand up and said, "Can't do it." There's already been a little bit of word that he possibly will be back to play this week, but I don't know how much that's going to limit him. So I would be looking more to like George Pickens or, Jake Ferguson to lead this team a little bit more going forward. And even like guys like Jalen Tolbert. I'm not saying go out there and get Jalen Tolbert and start. I'm just saying he may be more of a name while CeeDee Lamb is hurt. All right, guys, we're in the home stretch here. We got the Cardinals and the 49ers. Little NFC West matchup. Obviously, the big news of this game, James Conner went down with an ankle injury, which appears to be season ending. So big prayers for James Conner as well. But with that being said, Trey Benson, if he is not owned in your leagues already, he's already in. But with that being said, Trey Benson, if he is not owned in your leagues already, he is somebody you absolutely want to go out there and get right now. Speaking about other people on this team, Trey McBride obviously hooped. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the most frustrating player to watch in the NFL. And at this point, I'm probably benching him on my teams. I wouldn't be mad at you if you do, because I just don't know what they're doing over there with him right now. And then looking at San Francisco, Mac Jones able to get it done after a brutal interception to start the game off, but obviously finished the game super strong. Ricky Pearsall led the team in receiving after Juwan Jennings was a late inactive for the game. Off of 11 targets, 8 catches, 117 yards, and that spectacular catch that he made as well. Ricky Pearsall is just a guy for this team, especially if Juwan Jennings is out for any period of time. He will be the guy. But another one who will be the guy is Christian McCaffrey. 15 targets at the running back position is absolutely insanity. He's able to turn those 15 targets into 10 catches for 88 yards. And as long as he's doing stuff like that and commanding volume like that, he is the RB1. I'm sorry. I don't know what else you want me to tell you there. I don't know what else you want me to tell you there. I just don't know. And we are going to round this one off with the Giants and the Chiefs game, which obviously the Chiefs dominated the majority of this game. Patrick Mahomes able to find pay dirt to Tyquan Thornton, who has more production so far through week 3 than he had all of last year with the Patriots. So he is starting to find his stride with this team as like a deep threat and just sort of just overall. 9 targets, able to turn into 5 catches, 71 yards, and the touchdown. He's somebody that I kinda saw a little bit on the upswing, and I actually started him last week. So, yeah, it was kind of a call for me last week that ended up going well, but Tyquan Thornton may be a guy going forward until Rashee Rice, comes back to this team, and even still, the role that he serves is completely different from Rashee Rice, and as long as he's got this deep ball chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, in best ball leagues, probably a great shout. In fantasy, he's gonna be a little boomer bust, but who knows? And also, I'm starting up the agenda. Brashard Smith, 2 carries, 13 yards, 6.5 yards per carry. It's the most efficient running back there. You know what I'm saying? It's not a serious thing. I'm just trying to start an agenda. Speaking of agendas, Cam Scatabo for the Giants, absolutely spectacular. 10 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. 6 receptions, 61 yards off 8 targets. He was the Giants offense this past week. And I think that should continue going forward, to be honest. We saw sort of the precursor of that last week, but this is more of the warning shot now, especially after getting 8 targets. He actually led the team in targets. This is the first time I'm seeing this. Malik Neighbors only had 7. Cam Scatabo had 8. So he led the team in targets this week. And I also assume we're probably going to see Jackson Dart sooner rather than later with these performances from Russell Wilson. Obviously, last week was amazing. This week, not at all. And there was some chance during the game for Jackson Dart as well. So we're gonna see, but Russell have to get it together to a pretty high extent. And Wan'Dale Robinson came a little bit back to earth compared to last week, but I still think he is a name to watch in this offense. So keep an eye out for sure. All right, guys, and that's gonna round off our video. I'm sorry that was as long as it was, but with 14 games, we can only do what we can do to get out good content to you. So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought about this slate of games and some of your takeaways from it. Let me know what you thought about my takeaways. Was I off base? Was I on base with some of these? Let me know. But with that being said, if you guys watched this far into the video, as always, we love you and we'll catch you in the next one.